Hey, welcome to the Inner Circle podcast, where growth minded leaders come together to build better businesses and better lives. I'm your host, Hector Alvarado. Here, we don't do theory, we share real lessons, real systems, and real strategies you can use right away. This is a community for people committed to growth, impact, and supporting each other on the journey. You're in the right room, my friends. Let's get started. Welcome everyone again to part two of the Decision Makers Playbook, and as you've said, Alan, it is the decision framework. And
Yeah.
I don't know if it's going to be easier,
Mm.
but what I think it'll do is provide us a framework where we could be more successful, from a percentage standpoint. So it'll increase our batting average, if you would, for us to be able to see those wins that we're ultimately after when we're making decisions. All right. So, last week, as you said, a couple weeks ago, I should say, we laid out the very first sort of, action around this four-part series. And that was to help people put the decisions on the table and sort them out, right? It was to help everybody get clear on what those are. And you found out what belonged to you, what belonged to your team, what wasn't even really requiring a decision at all. Like that's what we covered on that week's topics. So fast forward now to this week, we're going to go a little deeper because here's the problem most leaders do not see, in that it is not all decisions are the same. However, we tend to run every decision through the same process. And that's kind of what we were talking about before the start of the call is, you are either overthinking everything, bringing that same rigor to a scheduling call as you would to hiring a key decision or a key individual, or you're underthinking everything, making major capital decisions with the same speed that you used to reply to an email, as an example.
Yeah.
Both are expensive in completely different ways, and we have to be able to explain that through this framework today. You're going to get to see both ends of these problems, and so the right process for the right decision every time is the outcome. So before we get into the framework, I want to establish that there's two axes that are the only two things that determine how any decision should be processed. There's two ways, right? And the first one, the first axis is stakes, meaning what's at stake? What is the consequence if a decision is wrong? Low stakes means the wrong call cost us little in time, money, or relationship impact is minor, yet it is recoverable. High stakes means that the wrong call is expensive, financially hits, relationally, it can definitely cause some major relationship damage, or strategically and maybe even reputationally. Like that's the high stakes component. That's the high gamble. And axis 2 is reversibility. That is, can you change course if you're wrong? Is reversible means you can course correct midway through. The decision can be undone, adjusted, or literally abandoned quickly if needed. Irreversible means once it's made, walking back is costly, damaging, or possibly not possible. It could not be done. So knowing the difference between reversibility and in irreversible is that access to. Right now, every decision you'll ever make sits somewhere on these two axes. It's not in the middle. It's in one or the other. It's like how I always like to say, you're either pregnant or you're not, but you're never going to be halfway pregnant, right? So it's important that your job is not to make every decision the same way. Your job is to match the process to where the decision actually sits. And so in these two axes, we're going to give you the four type of decision making frameworks because, as you know by now, I like quadrants. And so to me, every decision sort of gets split into four quadrants. And so there are four decision types, and each type has a specific protocol. So let me walk you through all four so that it makes sense for us together here. The first type, oh, yep, go ahead. Go ahead, Alan.
I'm sorry. I'm already at the point like, oh, this is so good. I want to back up and listen to some this is again. What are the two axes again? I'm trying to make.
Yeah, for sure. The first one is stakes, right? Is thinking of what's at stake. And in fact, it's sort of think of it as is this is this high stakes, that it's going to cost a lot, or is it low stakes where it's not going to impact as much? And the second one really becomes around reversibility. Is it reversible or irreversible?
Thank you.
No worries. No worries. I'm glad that we can, just make sure that it's clear for everybody, listening and in the room here today. So as we move on to those four quadrants that we talked about, our type one, again, we talked about the axis, right? So it's going to be reversible and low stakes. So think of the axis, think of how they flow, right? Reversible, low stakes. I call this the fast call. The protocol here is decide immediately. Trust your judgment. Do not loop in others into it. It doesn't require it. Does not even require research. Acting fast when the math is simple is the answer here. The cost of delaying a low stakes reversible decision always exceeds the cost of being wrong. So if you get it wrong, you simply adjust. Like, the business doesn't even feel it. An example of what this would be: an email tone, okay? Minor vendor selections, a meeting agenda. I've actually seen meetings held to create a meeting agenda. Believe me, it was like, why would we ever do this? However, it happens. And it happens because people are overthinking these type of activities. So if it's this type one, decide fast and move on. Like, sometimes you might be in the room and you got to make a quick decision. This is the type in which you do so. Okay. Don't need to bring others into it. Type two is reversible but has high stakes. Again, it's reversible but has high stakes. This one, you need to consult and decide. The protocol is get targeted input from 1 to 3 critical people who have relevant experience, expertise or context on this particular decision. Here's the critical piece: is set a firm deadline and then make the call. The reversibility is your safety net. Remember, it has high stakes, but it is reversible. And so that is it. If you get it wrong, you can course correct without any major damage. But the high stakes means that if you skip the input, it creates unnecessary risk. So you're not building consensus in this type. Okay, let me make sure I say that again. You're not engaging others for consensus. You're gathering people for intelligence. Then you are still deciding. It's not that the group decides, you still have that final decision, but you need to get information, get intelligence before you make the decision. The failure modes for type 2 is deciding too fast, which means you skipped that useful input from others, or deciding too slow, which means you turned their input gathering into an agreement. And then it became avoidance because nobody agreed. You avoided making the decision. Okay, you see how this one comes to play. Set the deadline before you start consulting because that is actually what will make sure that you honor your decision. Because if you don't put that deadline in, that's when you procrastinate. That's when you leave it to chance. That's when you make it a non priority. But by saying, I have to have a deadline, man, your mind goes to work in achieving the deadline. So that's like an insider's tip on this type 2 decision making. Okay. Decision 3, or type 3, sorry, is irreversible low stakes. The protocol here is design a small pilot or experiment. Why? Because it's irreversible. Remember, it's irreversible, but low stakes. So define what success looks like before you start. Commit to reviewing results before expanding them. The irreversibility means you cannot fully undo it. So once it's in motion, it's important that you take your learnings once it's going, because if you don't learn, the risk expands. But the low stakes means that the cost, if failed, it's absorbable. You can palatate it. It's going to be fine. It's not going to be disruptive to that point, and that you can't afford to take the learnings. Okay. The failure mode for type 3 is skipping the pilot project and going straight to full implementation. I've been there. We've seen it. People skip the test and they go right to live mode. And all of a sudden, now it's problematic, right? A new software platform rolled out company wide without a 30-day test. That's a type 3 mishandled. Okay, that's an example. Don't roll it out company wide until you've had testing phase. Play with it. Make sure you work out all of the different things that could go wrong before you take it to market. Don't just assume it's ready to go. So that's type 3. Type 4 is irreversible and high stakes. The protocol here is slow down. This one will require maximum rigor, full analysis, multiple perspectives, dedicated deliberation time. So you can't shortcut this. This is the only decision type where extensive analysis is actually justified with the math. The high stakes means the wrong decision is an expensive decision, very expensive. And because it's irreversible, it means you can't unwind it, right? You can't get a redo on this. So the cost of thorough analysis is almost always lower than the cost of the wrong decision in type 4. So here's where the critical warning for type 4: most leaders over apply it. Okay, they over apply this thought process. They bring type 4 execution to type 1 and type 2 decisions. My example of having a meeting to set an agenda for a meeting, that is like over analyzing a process or a decision that could be simply done. So understanding the different types will help you in ensuring that you make the right decisions, because otherwise you're creating paralysis where speed is required. And type 4 should be rare. Let me state that the type 4 should be rare. If you're treating every decision, in your business, and that could be 10 to 15 sometimes, like type 4s, then you're establishing the wrong quadrants for these decisions. Reverse this protocol for decisions that truly deserve it. Like reserve it for that. Reserve it for those ones that really require it. Like key hires, major capital investments, strategic pivot points, an acquisition, a partnership agreement. Like those you can't undo. Think of type 4s like, like a marriage. Like you're going to be married to this decision and it's going to be tough. I know that today's day and age we can get divorces and all that, but like you're still always going to carry that. It doesn't just, get erased. It's there. So like think about that sort of mentality, right? And it's a pretty tough one. When you make it, it needs a lot of thought process. It needs a lot of real analyzation, okay? Because here's the misapplication problem that we see is that the framework is only valuable if you apply it correctly. There's two costly mistakes that I see when this is misapplied. Mistake number one, again, I spoke to it earlier, but type 4 rigor or application to type 1 calls. What does this look like? Again, scheduling a team outing that takes three meetings and a survey. Who's experienced that? Hey, we're going to go have a barbecue. Let's send out a company survey and then let's meet a few times to determine what we're going to have for lunch and where are we going to have it and all this. No, no, no. Just make the decision and go. Like it doesn't need it, okay? A routine client email that gets drafted, reviewed, and revised multiple times before it gets sent out. What it costs you in this mistake one is hours per week lost to low stake deliberation. Team speed is slowed down by a leader who cannot move quickly on simple calls, and the momentum gets stalled. Okay, that's what happens when you make this type of mistake. Mistake number two is type 1 speed on type 4 calls. Meaning, what does this look like? A key hire made on a gut feel interview and no reference checks done. Right? Wow, like that's a major bomb. You're going to hire just on a 15-minute to 30-minute interview and no reference checks, no due diligence. You're like, that's a key decision that should take it slow and make sure that you're thorough, right? We have a saying when it comes to hiring: hire slow, fire fast, right? But I've seen many teams where they hire fast for the sake of getting a body in the room and into the position, and they're generally almost always the wrong hire. That is type 1 speed on type 4 decision makings. Another one could be a major vendor contract signed without legal review. You want to make sure that you're thorough in your contracts that you're signing, right? And so another one could be a strategic pivot announced without modeling a financial impact first, right? So all of this, and so to bring out the potential of expensive mistakes, irreversible errors on decisions that deserved more thought. That's the critical point here. And the one that most people miss that I want to point out when it comes to this mistake number two, is trust erosion from calls that are clearly needed more thorough, more strategic approach, because the damage that can be done from a trust erosion component can take months and years in some cases to repair. So I wanted to make sure that that nugget of information was planted here, because it is critical for us as leaders to be aware of that impact when we do this. Now, can it be reversed? Absolutely. But it will take a long time, right? I mean, just think of once you get burned once, you start to that seed stays in your brain for quite some time. And then here's the most common misclassification, and it is treating type 2 decisions as if they were type 4s. Again, this is a reversible high stakes. That's what the type 2 is, just in case you forgot, okay? And that is that you make irreversible paralysis situations. You're thinking that I can't irreverse, this is not reversible, so you're frozen with the decision. And the leader thinks that it is too important to rush. I need more time, I need more data, I need more certainty. That's generally what we hear when it comes to this. But the decision is actually quite reversible, meaning the cost of being wrong is manageable. And the analysis just keeps going and going, and the decision keeps waiting and waiting, and momentums die. So before you apply this type 4 rigor, that type 4 thoroughness to any decision, ask yourself one question first. If I make this call and it turns out to be wrong, can I course correct within a certain time? Can 30, 60, 90 days? And if yes, then it's not a type 4. It's simple. Stop treating it like one. Speed is not reckless. Speed on a reversible decision is correct decision making. So I want to make sure we stress those points because they're important for us to understand it. I'm going to give you a case study on a custom manufacturing. They were about 67 employees, 8.2 million in revenue, so quite healthy, from a revenue standpoint, large organization. The owner was thorough, super analytical, and deeply experienced. He had built this beautiful business on careful, well-researched decisions. But over time, that same rigor and the same process he applied to major capital investments had eventually crept over into every decision in the business. Who's been in that phrase? Who's seen it where everything gets stalled? Like you can't make a decision unless you get clearance. You can't make a decision unless you get group input. You can't make a decision, right, until somebody approves it. All we call this red tape. We're like, oh, there's that business has too much red tape. We all hear that. That's the equivalent of this, and that's what they were going through. So he had applied that same process across his entire business. And so what happened was that he lost a critical person in his group, a high decision individual, director role. And this is when it became clear to him that he had lost something in his business, that his process needed a revamp, and that he needed to look at what he was doing. The input that came from that exit interview was that people were not empowered, that they were not trusted to make decisions. And so it was creating a real, what I call not chaos, but untrusting circumstance in the workplace. So here's what he changed. he went in and understood after experiencing the use of this framework, he understood that he could have the four types communicated to his team, and in every meeting it was posted on the wall. Everybody knew that they had to identify the type of issue first before any decision was discussed. The team was asked to name the type first. Type 1, decisions were made in that room. It was easy, as fast as here we go. It was a type 1, let's solve it, let's go. If it was a type 2, the decisions were assigned and an input deadline was created so that you could still accomplish and make that decision by the deadline time. And only type 4 decisions received that full thoroughness process that he had once used on everything. After he did this, within like 60 days or so, the average decision cycle reduced from 18 days to 4 days across the organization. And operations team reported feeling trusted for the first time in years. That was the critical win that he was after. Because after he went and hired the new director of operations and onboarded him, he was very explicit on decision authority defined by type so that we were not going to have that same type of bottleneck and frustration and trust erosion again in the business. So it was a real big win for this group. And the lesson learned was that most decision pain does not come from hard decision. It actually comes from misclassified ones. And so that is something that is critical for us to, to take away and understand that, you know, we're humans and we're going to make mistakes, but understanding sort of our frameworks sets us up to make less mistakes. So this is why I like frameworks. I like knowing what my sandbox is. I like knowing where my sidelines are, and I encourage everybody, to do the same thing and go build your personal protocol. But when you do so, ask these three questions so that the entire system makes sense for you. Okay, question number 1. What are the stakes if I get this wrong? Are they high or low? Question number 2, can I reverse this if I'm wrong? Yes or no? Is it reversible? And question 3, what type does this make it? Low and reversible, type 1, high and reversible, type 2, right? Or is this low and irreversible, type 3, or high and irreversible, the type 4, the critical ones, the ones that you need to build a business case and gather data and set firm decisions and really be thorough. That's your type 4. That's your critical one. So now we've shared with you the 4 different types. That's week 2. It's simply 2 axes, 4 types, and 1 protocol for you to go apply. The right process for the right decision every single time. Simple, but your assignment this week is to go and post that framework somewhere visible in your office. Before any decision is made with your team, share with them what that is. And so that we can ensure that everybody's aware of that type of decision making. And so, this tells us how important the decision making process can be and how to go and action it. So that's what we got for you today, and we'll see you, as we go around the room and let's see what people have to ask, and excited to hear any questions and comments.
Absolutely. I already know for a fact that I'm going to be going into the community later whenever this is posted, and I'm going to be listening to this call again. Not, I think I got to listen to the first one for sure because we missed a week, but this has been really fabulous for me, Hector, and I have to think, all of us that are on the call, this affects every one of us. We all make decisions. We're forced to make decisions. We have to make decisions whether we like them or not. I'm in the middle of making a great big decision today that I don't want to make, and it's going to
Yeah,
affect some people. So this is very timely and helpful for me. I
interesting.
realized something. I've made mention before. I've one of my mentors is a guy by the name of John Maxwell. I'm a Maxwell certified coach, but John brought me to an awareness one time that reminds me of an awareness you just brought me to, Hector, and it's so important. And I realized that I always thought through things the same way. There was kind of like Alan had one way of thinking about everything. And John taught me that, he's written a couple of books, but there's like 11 different types of thinking. And I actually had to learn oh, there's different ways to think, and those different ways are necessary to think through different scenarios at different times or different to get different kinds of results. And then it was a discipline that I had to actually go and learn these 11 different ways to think. And it was a game changer for me. I realized something from you, Hector, that's been a game changer on this call. You said at the beginning, and I don't know if I'm quoting you verbatim, but I tried to write it down. Not every decision are the same decisions, but we tend
Yeah,
to make all our decisions the same way. And I
that's
just went,
right.
whoa, like my little pea brain just exploded in my head when you said that. And I thought, I do that. I recognize right off the bat that I try to make all of my decisions the same way. I default to one kind of
Mm,
way. And then when you are taking us through this framework, I love the fact that you've got these two axes, and I tried to draw it out in my paper. I'm really hoping that later when this lesson gets posted in the community, that there will be a visual. If there's not, I'm
there is.
hey
There's a
Willie,
worksheet.
make a
There's a
visual.
worksheet,
And,
Alan.
I'm kind of like, is there actually going to be a quad with the two axes and high and low and irreversible and reversible? Because I want to
Yes,
see that in
yes.
pictorial form, but I'm going, oh my Lord, this changes everything. There's some decisions that well, I should say I make almost all my decisions in quadrant one.
Oh, yeah.
And I try to, and I kind of wear it as a badge of like honor somehow, like, oh yeah, I'm just a quick decision maker, make all the decisions quick. I'm going, oh, no
Oh,
wonder some of my
no.
decisions are bad. No wonder I've really floundered and make some stupid bad decisions. I'm making everything quick, the quick call, no consult, not a lot of consult needed. I just gonna do it. And I treat them all as reversible and low stakes. And I'm like, is it any wonder I'm in the deep weeds sometimes? So this has really opened some things up for me. I have to think I'm not the only person on the call today that this is kind of challenging some things. I hope that some of you are coming to some realizations on this call like I have.
That's a wrap for today's episode of The Inner Circle. If something in today's conversation resonated, inspired you, or gave you a breakthrough, please share it with someone you care about. The right idea at the right time can change someone's business and their life. So make sure you follow the show, leave a review, and stay connected with us, because this community is built on relationships, real support, and real growth together. Remember that clarity means nothing without action. So choose one insight from today, put it into motion this week, and notice the shift. Thank you for being part of this journey, for showing up for your growth, and for being part of the Inner Circle community. See you in the next episode, and let's keep growing together.